Heyo people, sorry this review is crazy stupid late, but I decided to spend the time that I would have spent working on this review on this video that dropped here recently. Yeah, that finally came out. I figured y'all have been waiting long enough for this, so yeah, put this on the back burner to take care of that. Definitely check out the new Curse of the Best New Artist Grammy video. That was a lot of fun to make, a lot of fun to discuss. Yeah, sorry for the ad up front, but feel free to check that out. That's a good one. Heyo people, and welcome to this review of the latest from Foo Fighters. But here we are. That kinda says it all about this record, huh? It's no secret going into this record that the band has been through a lot. Dave Grohl in particular. Not only having to go through the devastating loss of the Foo's drummer, Taylor Hawkins, back in March, but also losing his mother, Virginia Grohl, much later in the year. Those are the kinds of losses that can absolutely end a band, you know what I mean? It's one thing to lose Taylor Hawkins, one of the most colorful and inventive drummers of the last 20 years, but to also lose your mother on top of that. And, I hate bringing it up alongside of all this other information, but the Foos, at least in my opinion, over the last few years, they've been in kind of a slump period. I just gotta admit, the last handful of Foo's records have done very little to impress me. I liked Sonic Highways at first, but I fell off after the honeymoon period with that record pretty hard. Concrete and Gold, in my opinion at least, was actually pretty lackluster, and Medicine and Midnight was kind of a great big nothing burger. I know some people like that record, but I'm sorry, if you held a gun to my head and told me to name a song from that record, you'd probably have to pull the trigger, dude. And the thing with the last few Foo Fighters records, and I've said as much in my last handful of reviews on these guys, is they have been suffering from a lot of bloat and, weird production choices. The band was just trying to scale up their sound, adding new elements, trying to go in crazy, bombastic directions. As they kept going in that direction, I just got bored with it very, very quickly. That's the thing, with them chasing such clean production and them trying to reinvent the wheel with their sound, again, it's something you always want a band to do and at least try to pursue. But in doing that, I feel like the Foos gradually kind of sanded off their edges and kind of removed the things about their sound and style that made them the Foo Fighters. They were still the Foo Fighters in name, but a lot of the spirit of the Foo Fighters wasn't really there. They just started to sound like alternative rock band number 572. And it's not like the Foo Fighters were ever the fucking Melvins or anything, but man, as they got more and more high polished, I got less and less interested. So I was worried about that going into this record. Not only have the Foo Fighters had to adapt to a lot of crazy changes, but they weren't exactly in the best spot when they had to, make these adaptations. So have they come out the other side okay? On this record, I'd honestly say the Foo Fighters feel way more energized and lively than they have on their last handful of records. It's honestly very, very impressive. Dave, Pat, and Chris all have a wonderful chemistry and flow between trading off riffs or carrying one part of the song to the next. Honestly, in places, particularly the opening hours with songs like Rescued and Hearing Voices, I hear so much energy and kind of drive. It reminds me a lot of some of the earlier Foo Fighters outings, a lot of the big ones, like Color in the Shape, or even the first Foo Fighters record in some ways. They went for a much rawer, grittier, just nuts and bolts kind of approach to their production and general sound construction. A lot of it is crunchier, a lot of it is much more chorus and verse and riff focused. Again, not that I absolutely despise the more ambitious, loftier stuff they've been trying, but it is nice to hear the Foos kind of get back to their roots and kind of take a more back-to-basics approach, not only in song construction, but in that production style, too. It's the same guy who actually did their last 2 records, so again, when I saw that, I was like, oh. But thankfully, him and the Foos took a much different approach on this one. The production on this thing is honestly what sets it apart from a lot of later Foos releases. Again, it's so crunchy and raw. This record sounds gritty in a way that the Foos haven't sounded like in a very long time. The distortion on this thing is very distorted. The bass and drums, the rhythm section is very loud and caustic. Again, with the Foos focusing so much on polish and so much on making sure everything is neat and tidy, this is probably one of the messiest records they've made in decades. But again, I feel like it benefits from it. Because again, I was getting so tired of the high polished stuff and the heavy moments on this record. This production style absolutely helps accentuate them in a huge way. This album, when it wants to go hard, it absolutely does go very, very hard. And honestly, I'm glad it does, because not only is this album heavy from just like a raw sound standpoint, but it's also very heavy lyrically too. Again, a lot of the songs on this thing tackle Dave and the band struggling with loss and having to learn to pick up the pieces. And man, they really hold nothing back. Dave shows us his whole heart, and man, his heart is broken on this thing. But I mean, you get why. In their performances, it has that kind of intensity that you get when you're at your breaking points. Just the way strumming is coming across and the way the drums are hit with that certain kind of fiery intensity. Even Dave's singing. Dave is howling his guts out on certain tracks. Again, that was a part of the Foos we kinda lost with later records. Again, with the focus on being so polished and so clean, it's nice to hear Dave just wail like a goddamn banshee on the heavier tracks, and even some of the slower tracks he does that. This album is about grief, it's about loss, and it is about just getting through those heavy emotions, kicking and screaming quite literally. And if you've ever lost someone close to you, I feel like this record absolutely will hit a note for you, just absolutely. Especially if you've lost someone recently. Be careful listening to this one, but it is an absolutely wonderful time. For everything I do appreciate about this album, though, I will say, I'm sorry, but it isn't 100% perfect. There are things about this album that come off a little awkward. Not even bad, I'd say, just kind of awkward. Part of the thing that doesn't work necessarily is the production. I know I just spent 10 minutes or whatever kissing this production's ass, but it isn't absolutely flawless here either. See, okay, the crunchy, raw, kind of car stereo-ass production this thing has is great for the heavy and big and intense tracks, but, well, it isn't just an album full of all-stick-arounds and whatnots. It's got some slower moments, some more serene and more quiet moments on it too. The Foos haven't shaken that, AOR style off entirely just yet. And from a raw technical standpoint, even the slower tracks are still very, very good. Show Me How, the duet Dave does with his daughter Violet, is particularly touching, and the flowery, peaceful, and deeply mournful Rest, the closing track. Oh man, that... Again, if you've ever lost someone dear to you, that song is going to hit like a bullet to the chest. Thematically it works and the songs are well constructed, but the production, again, it's raw, crunchy car stereo mode on every single song. And not every single song lends itself to that kind of production. Again, I appreciate that they went in the opposite of the direction that was doing them wrong and starting to really hurt the band sonically and come down on them, but I feel like maybe in places that feels like a bit of an overcorrection. I get what you're going for, but maybe leave Dinosaur Jr. off the ballads is all I'm saying. But I mean, in the grand scope of things, those are honestly nitpicks. This record is one of the best goddamn things the Foos have released in decades, and it's very easily a pretty top contender for Album of the Year in my books. And even with its minor quibbles here and there, I'm so glad to hear the Foos energized, lively, ready to rock the fuck out again, and just still delivering some of the best music they've ever made, even this late into their career. I mean, I hate what it took for us to get to this particular point, but it's good to see the Foos come out the other side in one piece, and still really just making fantastic music. At the end of the day, this record is just a bop. I'm feeling a strong 8 to light 9 on this record. Again, it's not without its problems. It genuinely isn't. But in the grand scope of things, I don't necessarily care. It's still a wonderful time, a must listen for any past or present Foo fan, and just a damn solid as hell rock record, you know? The stuff this band has gone through, particularly in the last year, is the kind of stuff that destroys a lot of other bands. But the Foos are made of stronger stuff, and like, again, it's so good to have them back on this particular side of my list. And that's the review. Thanks again for watching. Again, feel free to check out the latest long form that dropped, Curse of the Best New Artist 95 to 99. A lot of work went into that one. I'm thankful that you guys have been liking it. Again, let me know if you want to see other decades or other videos in that series. That's something we can consider in the future. Also, let me know what you thought about the new Foos. Did you like it, or were you maybe a bit more put off by it? I'm always happy to hear that. Feel free to let me know in the comments below. Just a minor heads up, after this video, probably going to take a little bit of a breather. Thankfully, it's not the craziest couple of weeks release-wise, and I'm probably going to just chill out a bit until FIMI Quarter 2. That is also definitely happening, so look out for that sometime in July. But yeah, y'all, thanks again for watching. I'm Crash Thompson, and I'll see ya when I see ya.